Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. Our guest today has had more than 300 rental properties in his real estate portfolio and has founded and led multiple successful companies. He's also the author of the book, Business Credit. Steve Wible is the Director of Business Development with Credit Suite. Steve, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Seth, thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So let's kick things off and talk about why you got into real estate. What were your goals in getting into real estate investing?
Well, that's a great question, Seth. What had happened, it was totally an accident. I had built an ex-Marine. When I got out of the Marine Corps, my father was in the printing industry. That's all I knew my whole life. So I went into that industry naturally. Ended up becoming a broker, built that business up. My partner and I, we built it up to a large number, and then we sold it. My son, who was very young at the time, he's in his 30s now, was doing things on the Mac that we were charging people $5,000 for. And I was like, whoa, we're going to be out of business soon, guys, between that and the internet. So we sold the company. As a matter of fact, ironically, the company that bought us went out of business 5 years later. So anyhow, took the cash. Now I'm 30 years old. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm too young to retire, obviously. Called my brother, as I was telling you earlier, and he said, hey, I'm buying real estate and renting them out. Why don't you try that out? All right. I came over and talked to him, and he showed me how he was doing it. And I said, well, let's do it big time. And what I was hoping to do was to end up with a commercial building downtown Philadelphia. That was my goal, a high rise with Wible Enterprises on top of it and the whole deal. Obviously, that didn't work out for me, but that was really what my dream was. I wanted to set it up so that I had a high-rise building, glass building. I could picture the whole thing now. And so we started. And our first purchase was 36 properties, one shot.
Nice. And like, had you ever been exposed to real estate before that? Or was it just that conversation with your brother that kind of started things off?
It was strictly that conversation. My brother had a very successful ADT dealership and the home security. And he lived very low. Like he drove an old probe station wagon. Like he was making lots of money and he didn't spend any of it. So he decided he did want to retire early. I was 30, he was 22. And he started buying these little properties for $50,000 in Camden, New Jersey, or $20,000 I think he was paying. And he would rent them out for $700-800 a month, and he'd fix them up himself. And so I'd never even seen that before. He took me and showed me the properties, and I'm looking at him going, why are you doing one? Let's do 50. So that's kind of how we got started. I think big.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. The one thing I've noticed with all the interviews I've done is the really successful people, they don't constrain themselves with those small goals and that small thinking. They're always thinking huge numbers, huge goals, right?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind a quick story, our first deal was 36 properties. When we made the offer, I turned to my brother and said, hey, congratulations, we got it. He goes, great, how are we going to pay for it? I'm like, I have no idea. No, but I just gave him $10,000. We better figure it out. We got 30 days. So that's thinking big.
Oh, no, 100%. And you know, I'm working on another book right now. And the chapter I was just typing out was on thinking big and how we self-impose these limitations on our mind for no good reason other than we just don't know the possibilities that are out there.
Yeah, we have to believe.
Yeah,
and I was one of those people that just didn't believe that I could fail. That's the Marine. That's the Marine in me. Don't go over the wall. Go right through it.
That's right. Yeah, usually you're packing a little more firepower, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
So as you're starting to scale up with your brother and acquiring more properties, did you develop any routines or rituals that helped keep you focused and made you successful?
That's a great question. And there was multiple avenues that we approached. Obviously, the first problem in real estate is lead gen. It's always going to be lead gen. Got to find the right deals. You don't want to compete with 5,000 other investors because then there's always some knucklehead who's willing to overpay, right? Yeah. I had investors that I was competing with who were buying properties just to keep their crews busy. And now, from what I understand, and I'm still a real estate agent, there are construction companies that will buy properties just to keep their crews busy, right? So now you're competing with them. We're looking for X% return, and they're just looking to stay busy. So our first issue was lead gen. Our second issue was money. So we had to make sure we had enough money to fund our deals. So we set out interviewing hard money lenders. Those of you who are familiar with hard money lenders understand what that means. It's hard money. It's called hard money for a reason. It hurts. However, if you leverage it properly, it's the easiest money to borrow and makes your life a lot easier. Anyhow, so we interviewed a bunch of hard money lenders, got a couple on board that we were comfortable with who trusted us. And then we set about doing lead gen. And we started off the way everybody else starts off. Bandit signs on the telephone pole. And that generated a lead or two here. Then I wrapped my vehicle in I Buy Houses. And I bought probably 20 properties off of that. But where we really hit it big, and your audience will get a chuckle out of this, is I sat down one day, because remember, I wasn't in real estate. I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, okay, who's our seller? Our seller are generally people who are losing their houses or have inherited a house that they don't want or need, and they're in a tough situation. So what would people be doing who were in a tough situation or were losing their house? I went, watching Judge Judy. That's what they'll be doing. I swear to you, that was, my brother laughed at me, so I called up the radio star TV station and said, how much to advertise on Judge Judy? And they told me the number. And we ran an ad every day in our market. And I'm telling you, if it was running at 5:03 p.m., I would have a bank of 40 phones with people sitting next to the phones. At 5:04, that phone rang.
I love that. That's awesome.
The phone rang off the hook. And now unfortunately, we were in the Philadelphia, South Jersey market. We were only buying in South Jersey. We expanded a little bit to Philadelphia, but we were really focused on South Jersey, and we were licensed real estate agents in South Jersey as well. So any leads that came in from Philadelphia, I would just sell to other investors. So then my cost was zero, and I had all these free leads.
You know what? Kudos to you for thinking of Judge Judy. That's like,
they told me I was the first one to ever advertise that on there, and from what I understand, nobody else has ever done it.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? I think that is one of the most creative advertising methods we have ever had on the show. That's great.
Well, it wasn't cheap. I will tell you, I think I was spending 10 grand a month on Judge Judy at the end. But think about it. I was literally getting 40 leads per run. So that's 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot of motivated sellers. And how I figured out how to monetize it better was I was walking out of a house. You got a picture of me walking out, disappointed, walking out of a $300,000 Center Hall Colonial that was beautiful, that wanted 300 grand. It was worth 320. And I'm walking out dejected. I got halfway down the sidewalk and I went, man, if I was a licensed real estate agent, I could have listed that house. So I went and got my license. And then every lead we were making money off of.
Yeah.
We ended, I think our first month in business as real estate agents, we listed 27 properties or some ridiculous number. Oh yeah, it was crazy. It was fun.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to circle back because you mentioned speaking with hard money lenders. Do you have any tips for somebody who's maybe having trouble approaching lenders, or hasn't done it before? Like, what sort of tips would you give them with speaking with a hard money lender?
This is the number one tip that I received from a better investor than I was, who was my competition. You run into people that you compete with. You just do, at the auction house or whatever. And I was complaining about a deal that I lost money on, that the construction run over. And he said, Steve, you don't make your money when you sell the property. You make it when you buy it. And I learned a lesson, because I was starting to slip into that, well, it's a little tight, but that's okay. It's a deal. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Do not buy a property just to buy a property. If it's not a home, after that point, I only focus on home runs. Or doubles, let's say. Yeah. There had to be enough room in there for my construction to be 50% off and still make a profit. So that's the first thing. You make your money when you buy the property, not when you sell it, because you don't know when you're going to sell it. You might sell it in 3 months, 3 years, 30 years. But when you buy it is when you make your money. So that's the first thing. Now, because you're making your money when you buy it, it's easier to fund with a hard money lender. They'll typically, and the aggressive ones will lend about 75% after repaired value. Typically, they're going to be 65 to 70. So if you think about that, people get upset at that, but I actually looked at that as a positive. They wouldn't let me get into a bad deal, right?
Yeah.
So I would tell them it was worth 100. I would want to borrow 75%. They would come back and say, no, it's worth 90, even though I thought it was worth 100. And they would only lend me 75% of that or 70% of that. And guess what? I never lost money when I borrowed hard money. Never. The only time I lost money was when I paid cash.
Yeah.
So it's really not that difficult. Most hard money lenders lend based on the deal, not on your credit. They will look at your credit. Don't get me wrong. You can't be in open bankruptcy. Typically, at least in the United States, they'll lend. They want to lend to a corporation, an LLC or an S corp or something, because they're going to do what's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Okay, you understand what that is, right?
Yeah, but let's explain it for somebody out there who might not know.
Okay, so a deed in lieu of foreclosure as opposed to a regular foreclosure. A regular foreclosure is when your house gets foreclosed on by the bank, you haven't paid your mortgage, and they're going to go ahead and either have a sale on the courthouse steps, depending on the type of state you're in, or they're going to file a court case against you, and they're going to go through that long process, 6 months to a year. Matter of fact, I've seen it take as long as 3 years. A deed in lieu of foreclosure is you sign a deed at the table to the lender, and if you don't pay that mortgage, they file the deed. The house is no longer yours. So there is no waiting for foreclosure. You don't pay your interest payment that's due, you're losing the house and all the effort that you've put into it. Hard money lenders love doing that because they get all the profit.
Yeah.
So my point I'm getting is they're willing to lend to higher risk borrowers because they're protected through that. Mm-hmm. They're going to put the right value on it to make sure you don't get into a bad deal, and then they're going to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure if that's legal in your state.
Yeah.
But you have to borrow in a company's name. Because of usury laws, they can't predatory lending. They can't lend to an individual at 18% or 12% interest. I was paying, to give you an idea, I was paying 18% interest when I was doing this, interest only. But then I would make them lend me the money for the payments too. And if there's enough equity in your deal, they'll even do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's say somebody's out there, they have a deal and they're looking for a hard money lender. Would you suggest that they just, they get referrals to Five and just give them a call?
I would absolutely. Look, real estate is very local. However, with the advent of the internet, it's a lot easier. As a matter of fact, you didn't even know this because you didn't ask me. We're hard money lenders. We actually lend money in all 50 states. However, it's still very local. If you can find a local hard money lender who can come kick the tires, so to speak, I suggest you work with them first. Because they're there, they can see the work, they know the neighborhood. I'm going to pull up your home's value based on what maybe not Zillow says, because nobody trusts Zillow, but I'm going to reach out to a real estate agent or whatever, but I'm going to find some way to evaluate it. A hard money lender's there locally. They know sometimes real estate can be block by block. The city that I invested in Camden, and this is not disparaging to Camden, but there were literally blocks where you wouldn't want to drive down, and then the next block, the house might be worth $100,000.
Yeah.
So it was block by block. Plus, there could be a certain amount of board ups. So I would start off, talk to at least 2 or 3. Don't just go with the first one that approves you. That's foolish. And then if you're interested, you can always reach out to us too, and we'll give you all that info at the end.
Okay, that sounds good. So out of all the deals that you've done, is there a deal that stands out as a keystone deal that made a big impact on you?
I have the deal of deals.
All right.
Okay, so I mentioned that I bought those 36 properties. And I bought them from a pair of gentlemen who were older, who are my age now, and they wanted out. They wanted to get into the commercial business. So we performed on those 36 properties. They were very excited. We were the only investor that actually stepped to the plate. They happened to own a 187-unit townhouse complex, apartment complex, but they were all townhouses, 2-bedroom townhouses. And they wanted to sell it. So they approached me. Hey, Steve, you did well on this. Would you be interested in this property? Well, how much are you asking? And I already knew it was a slum. Like, it was just run down. They'd owned it outright for years. Every nickel they collected was a nickel in their pocket. They said, well, we want $4 million. And I'm looking at them like they're crazy. Like, $4 million. And then I started doing the math, and I went, man, if I could get a contract on this with Section 8 for 100% occupancy at $900 a month, and I started doing the math, I went, okay, I'll give you $4 million. But I need a year and a half to close. I'm only going to give you $1,000 down. I want an option to buy it at $4 million. And I'll get back to you. I'll let you know well in advance if I'm not going to be able to produce. No problem, Steve. We trust you. And they wrote the contract, and I gave them $1,000 check. So I ended up, without boring you with the details, I ended up getting approved for 100% occupancy, Section 8. I found another buyer in the Northeast who specialized in HUD properties, and they were going to build a community center and rehab the entire property. Remember, the property still exists today. And they bought it for $5.5 million. Including the HUD contract. So we all get together and we have this settlement in a room, got 60 people in it, redevelopment authority, the whole deal. And I'm sitting in the corner by myself, and I get $1.5 million check. And then the seller hands me back my original $1,000 check. He never even cashed it. So I literally leveraged zero into $1.5 million.
Yeah.
That's the deal of a century. Nobody can top that.
I think that highlights the beautiful thing about real estate, where you can be rewarded for using your head, right? It's not necessarily the hours you put in. You recognize opportunity there. You put the people together, and you are rewarded for that. It's not because you spent X number of hours, hammering away at it to collect your paycheck.
That's exactly right. As a matter of fact, I knew Section 8 because I had a ton of their tenants already, and I treated them really well. That was also the key, by the way. The backstory is we were doing granite countertops when everybody else was doing Formica. Like, our tenants loved us. We took care of them. We visited our homes every single week, knocked on the doors for anything we can do for you. We were in the city. People could find us anytime they wanted. So we had a good reputation, so that helped. Section 8 was always looking for more housing. We already knew that. And my issue was who was going to buy it. I had no idea. So I searched out the best commercial apartment building broker in the country. I said, here's what I got. Here's what I'm working on. Do you know anybody? Well, yeah, but you got to pay me X amount. Fine, put it together.
Yeah.
So in other words, you hire the people who are good at what they do.
Yeah, well, 100%. And that's an awesome, I love that. That's great. Especially because the guy gave you back the $1,000.
To me, it's funny. Forget the money. I threw all that money away anyway. That money's gone, eh? But getting the check back just made me, I literally laughed out loud.
Yeah.
It's the greatest leverage in history.
Oh, huge. That's great. And it's also interesting that you were able to get the terms where, you had a year and a half to close on it.
Well, it was originally a year, but he knew what we were doing, so I asked for a 1-year extension, and they had no problem. Once again, reputation, because I had promised I was going to do X on the first deal, and I did it. Mm-hmm. Same with Section 8. I promised I was going to do X and did it. So when people say, what's your word worth? It's worth millions. It's really worth millions. If you do what you say you're going to do, people will trust you and open up more opportunities for you.
Yeah. And especially, real estate's such a small world, right? Somebody always knows somebody else. So if you blow your reputation, you're kind of down the creek without a paddle.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Your listeners, I wonder how many of them have purchased a home from somebody, treated them fairly, and then a year later they get a referral of somebody else who wants to sell their home from that person. Mm-hmm. Right? That's important in any industry, but in real estate, it's huge because it's very local, mm-hmm. right? So everybody knows everybody, even in dealing with real estate agents who are bank-owned, REO agents. If you say you're going to buy a property from an REO agent and you back out, trust me, you're never getting another property from them. And if you do, you're overpaying for it.
Yeah.
They had their favorites for a reason because they were people who performed.
Yeah. Well, 100%. So how does this get you into Credit Suite where you are now? Where's the connection?
Well, now my sad story comes. So obviously everyone out here is aware of what happened in 2008. What they wouldn't be aware of is my wife begged me to stop in 2006. Begged me. We have enough money. What are you doing? No. I'm going to leverage this and I'm going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and because you don't believe you're going to fail, right? You think big. So obviously 2008 came. And at this point, I had 5 crews of people that were working for me, construction workers. I had my father, my brother. I had a lot of people working for me. And so my first job was to keep everybody employed. Obviously, I want to make sure everybody has a paycheck. They have families they have to support. And I'm not just talking about my family. I'm talking about the other people that work for me. So that wasn't working out. I was losing a lot, over $100,000 a month. And in addition to that, I had 35 properties under construction that I had borrowed hard money on at 18% interest, and the values were going down faster than I can get them done. So I was upside down on every single property. So in the end, what happened is the bank started calling in the notes. Now, I did something a little differently than other investors did. I could have sat back, collected my rent, said, forget it. If it takes me a year to foreclose, I'll just collect all this rent, and good luck to the tenants. My wife and I had a heart-to-heart, and we discussed it and said, look, these are families. These are their homes. We have to find a way to keep them in there. So we made a deal with the banks that if they would extend the lease for 1 year for each client, 2 years, for each client, we would deed the properties over, no foreclosure. They'd have to go through a certain process, but it ended up deeding it over. Mm-hmm. They all agreed. Everyone stayed in the properties, or at least had an opportunity for 2 years. As a matter of fact, some of them ended up buying them from the banks, which is great. But I walked away with nothing, zero. I lost everything, including my personal house. But ironically, I didn't walk away with bad credit. And here's why. Now, I did have the foreclosure on my name, my personal home. But I made deals with the deal I made with the bank was they wouldn't put any foreclosures on me. But more importantly, I had high limit credit with, I can't say their names, but HD and L, where you could buy construction supplies, and a 4-letter auto truck company, the #1 truck in the world. I had 5 of those. I had Visas and MasterCards. I had a ton of credit in the business name that wasn't tied to me personally. So when the business went down, so did the credit, but it wasn't tied to me. So I walked away clean, perfectly clean. Now, I did this by accident, strictly by accident, only because I had this printing company, so I understood business credit a little bit. But I didn't realize what I had done. Let me put it that way. I just thought that was normal business. What I didn't realize is most of the world didn't know about that. So I moved to Florida because I'm embarrassed because I've lost all this, and I was a top RE/MAX agent. I got to get out of town, become a real estate agent, and I'm doing fine. And then I see this ad on Craigslist for this company, and I read what they do, and I went, oh my God, that's literally what saved me. I got to talk to these people. So 52 years old, applied for my first job, and they said no. Denied. I went, oh man. So back to real estate I go. About a month later, I got a phone call. I guess the person they'd hired hadn't worked out, and they asked if I'd be willing to come in and talk to them. So I took the job. I didn't care what it was paid. I really wanted to learn more about this. This was such an interesting program. So after about a year, I ended up being one of their top sales guys, and I'm a preacher. I love it. So I asked them if I could speak, if I could go out around the country and speak on stages, if I could do webinars, podcasts, because I absolutely love this, and how it helped me had such an impact on me that I feel like everybody should know about this. And most people do not know about it. Most people, we're like sheep, right? You give me a credit application, put it in front of me, you see social security number, you immediately fill it in. Right?
Yeah.
You don't even think about it.
Hey, that was me when I first started too, right?
Sure. You know, it's just we're raised that way. What people don't realize is they don't have to do that. They can leave that completely blank. Now, there's more to it than that. And if they want more information, they can always reach out to us at creditsuite.com or info@creditsuite.com. But that's how I ended up here at Credit Suite. Now, I don't hate real estate. I love real estate. I have to tell you, I'm kind of like a guy who's been bit by a snake, and I'm like, now I'm really careful. Even buying my own house took me a year because I was like, nope, it's got to have lots of equity. I'm not interested. But that being said, there is no faster way to become a millionaire. No faster way. Other than maybe trading stocks, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you from a safety point of view, stocks can go to zero. Real estate doesn't. I kind of wish I had stopped when my wife. If I had stopped when my wife told me to stop, I'd be making, I don't know, $300,000 a month.
Yeah,
and
you'd also be the first guy to actually listen to his wife. So
yeah, and you know what? God bless her. 30 years, she didn't leave me. She didn't even complain. Packed up the house and moved from a 7,000 square foot house to a 1,200 square foot house. I love her. Nobody can make my head turn.
Yeah,
nobody. But anyway, so that's how I ended up here. And I'm not saying you should fail or plan to fail, but you shouldn't fail to plan. You should definitely not fail to plan. So even though we all expect to make money constantly forever and things are going to get better and better and better, if you don't have that fail safe set up where you're protected and your family's protected, and that's the most important, it's the reason we do this, then you need to look at building your business credit. If not with us, with somebody. Learn how to do it. Learn how to set up your business credibly. I guarantee you 99% of your audience has set their business up wrong. It's not fundable. And there's a couple of key things, and that's probably a conversation for another time, but it works perfectly. Matter of fact, our number one avatar is real estate investors. Number one. So.
Yeah, and it's so true because even myself, every investor will have their ups and downs as they go through the real estate journey and the cycle. Most people, like I said before, I was, I guaranteed everything. Everything was on, attached to my name, not to the business name. So like if somebody's starting out and they haven't acquired any properties yet, what are some best practices or things for them to think about as they start to prepare themselves to set themselves up the right way?
Well, the first thing you're going to do, and I apologize, I just realized I've been looking at you and not the camera.
It's all good.
The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set your business up credibly. And I'm going to go through, with your permission, I'm going to give you 5 things they need to do right away.
Let's do it.
Okay? very quickly. One, when you name your business, if you haven't already done so, please don't put investing or real estate in the name. Try to use something that's vanilla, like Oak Tree Enterprises or Wible Enterprises, as a matter of fact. You put your kids' initials together. It doesn't matter. Just make it as nebulous as possible. And the reason is you don't want to be pigeonholed. You don't want to be put into a high-risk industry, which, by the way, real estate is considered high risk. Matter of fact, almost all businesses are, but certainly real estate is something that stands out. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure when you register your business with the Secretary of State, you want to use a real business address. Now, I know everybody's going, whoa, I work out of my house. That's okay. You will pass with your home. However, I would suggest you go with what's called a virtual office. This is not a PO box. This is not a UPS box. This is a virtual office. They are a separate SIC code. You want to look up a company like Regus, REGUS, or Alliance Virtual Offices. You want to make sure that they legitimately are a virtual office. Okay, that's the next thing you want to do. And they're very inexpensive. The third thing is you want to make sure your phone number is a legitimate phone number. Whenever I ask a business owner for their phone number, invariably they always show me this, right? Cell phone. It's a habit. We all give out our cell phone. However, what most people don't realize, except us old folks, is that back in the day when we did a rotary dial, if you wanted information on a business, I would pick up the phone and dial 411 and ask for Joe's Pizza, right? Joe's Pizza on Main Street. And they would give us the number. Most people don't realize that database still exists and is still active. And you cannot list a cell phone number with the National 401 database. The first thing lenders check is that database to see if you're truly in business. If you are not listed with the National 401 database, instant automated rejection. It's artificial intelligence that finds this in a matter of seconds, in a tenth of a second. So you're going to want something called a virtual phone number. Everybody out there is probably familiar with Google phone numbers. That's the right idea, the wrong direction. Google owns that number. You don't own it. You want to go with somebody like Ring Central or Grasshopper. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yeah.
That's a real phone number that you can forward to your cell, and you can list that with the National 411 database. Okay, so second thing, phone. The third, this is my favorite. Please don't put on a credit application partyguy2001@yahoo.com or stevebuysHouses@gmail.com, which I know a lot of people do. You need to have info at or your name at yourwebsite.com. That's a professional email address. Lenders see that, they instantly reject you. If they don't reject you immediately on that, your limit's going to be very low. Because as far as they're concerned, you can't even afford the $19 a year to get email with GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to get a legitimate email, you want to get a legitimate website. Even if it's a one-page website, they're all done, pre-done. You just fill in your info. They're very inexpensive. Get a website. Remember, if you're buying homes for a living or flipping homes, you should have a website anyway. I buy houses, whatever. Fourth thing, is your business bank account. Don't run the money through your personal. Set up your LLC, get an LLC bank account, because what most people don't realize is banks give you a credit score. I can check with the bank on your credit score. They won't tell me what's in your account, but they tell me the average balance in the last 90 days based on a letter grade A through F. So a lender can check that too. So there are 5 things that they can do very quickly, very inexpensively. If the virtual office is a problem, it's no big deal. You can use your home. You will. It's like a C, ABC. Commercial will be A, B will be. Just understand that business credit reports are free, or not free, but they're public record. And on your business credit report is a Google Earth view of your office. So if you want people seeing your car in your driveway, maybe not with the license plate, but it's there, or maybe you in the backyard grilling, use your home address. People will have access to that information. And I know as a real estate investor, that's probably the worst thing you can do. You never want anybody having your home address.
Yeah.
I was very careful. The first thing I did, matter of fact, my second purchase after the 36 properties was a commercial building in that city that I rented out once, that it was a twin, and I put my office on the other, and I put a billboard on it. I didn't want anybody to know where I lived. It was none of their business.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are some really good tips. Really good tips.
Yeah, and most people don't think about it.
Oh no, I definitely didn't. And there's no textbook out there for how to set yourself up for credit success.
Yeah, they don't share this information on purpose. We're back to the credit app with a social security number request on it. they're hoping you fill it out. Matter of fact, I'll give you an example, Sam's Club. Sam's Club, most people don't know this, will give you a Visa card in the business name, okay? But the application has a Social Security number on it. You leave it blank, you give it to the customer service rep, they'll tell you you have to fill it in. You say, no, you don't, send it to your bank. It's Synchrony Bank, by the way. They'll send it in. Synchrony Bank will call them like instantly and say, no, we need their social, and you'll tell them, no, you don't, run it. And then their system automatically runs it based on your business credit number. They look at the address. All business credit is reported based on your address. They can run your credit reports without even having your EIN number and approve you. I got approved for $15,000, and the girl was mad about it. Only because she didn't know any better. And look, they're customer service reps. They're not underwriters. Most people don't know it. Even their employees don't know it. This is big information, and nobody knows about it. I didn't know it. I built a $25 million company, had no idea.
Yeah.
When I had my printing company. Had no idea. I signed for everything. Sure, sign here. And unfortunately, if you're in the real estate business, that directly affects your business because your credit score, as you know, utilization goes up, score goes down. Now your rates change if you're maybe getting into an apartment building. So you need to protect your credit score more than anybody else does. Yeah. Anybody. So that's why business credit is so important. Sorry, I hope I didn't go off on a tangent there. I tend to.
Oh, no, that's perfect. So if somebody is looking to get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Well, they can reach us at our website at creditsuite.com, and I'll spell suite, it's S-U-I-T-E. So it's creditsuite, SUITE.com, or they can email us at info@creditsuite.com. Don't ask for me. I'm in biz dev. One of the sales reps or advisors would be happy to talk to you. Unfortunately, I'm on the road. I won't respond for 3 weeks, and you'll think we're a terrible company. So info@creditsuite.com. Again, info@creditsuite.com.
That's great. Well, Steve, really enjoyed our chat today, and you had some really great tips for people just starting out.
Seth, I really appreciate you having me on here. I hope I didn't go too far over. I tend to get really excited when I talk about business credit and real estate investing for that matter.
No, this was perfect. And the pleasure was all mine. So to you, our reviewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.